Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands.
upcoming tours,
And show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of March 27th, 2023.
Welcome back. We are well on our way to April showers, which I caught some pre-April showers Saturday night in Philly for Goose. I know that you're on the East Coast, aren't you, Amanda?
I am. I'm in the homeland, Kevin. I'm at Newark Airport right now, and I spent the weekend up in Woodstock to see Railroad Earth, and headed home.
All right. So how was it?
It's amazing. The Levon Helm Studios is such a special spot. It's small, it's intimate, it's amazing, and so just really, really great time. Glad I could go.
Very nice. Yes, Goose was fun. It rained. I didn't know much of what they played because I really don't know their songs. It's weird. I love seeing them. I'll go see them. Not 2 nights in a row, but I'll go one night. But don't ever make it through a stream. You
You
know,
know, some things just hit differently when they're
when they're
live, and
live.
and you also, I think, what you just said about kind of being connected to their songs and all, that's what makes it doable to get through a live stream a lot of times,
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So this week we're going to have our interview with Rich Grossman from the Lizards Fish tribute. Part of that coming up, and we're going to just jump right into the top three stories of the week.
The top three stories of the week.
All right, Kevin. So got a couple stories for us. I don't know if this is something that you're aware of. I had not heard of this before, but apparently Jambase, remember Jambase? They do their own March Madness tournament, Top Grateful Dead covers tournament, and that is actually about to come to a close pretty soon, but voting is still open. And so the final two competitors are Me and My Uncle by John Phillips and Morning Dew by Bonnie Dobson. So basically, they take the original artist who wrote that song that the Grateful Dead covered and put him up, I guess, match him up there. So pretty interesting. We'll have to share the link to this because it gets into some good specifics about what was seeded and how all that was decided.
What team are you on for the songs there?
Oh, for the last two here, um, you know, I'd have to go with Me and My Uncle probably. What about
Ooh,
you?
interesting. I've always found Me and My Uncle funny because the guy from The Loving Spoonful wrote it, and it just does not seem like a Loving Spoonful type of song. I got to go with Morning Dew. I mean, just Jerry. I've cried at Morning Dew.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
just
I
and
I love that emotion from you, Kev.
yeah, it's haunting. I mean, in Bonnie Dobson, if you've never heard her version, check it out. It's really pretty good. There's a great story behind that where apparently her manager for a long time had writing credit on it because he stole it from her, and there was a big court case because it used to say Dobson and then ROWE Row as a co-writing credit, and he had nothing to do with it. But
It's very interesting. So, in this scenario, Morning Dew was a 10th seed that beat the third seed, Not Fade Away. I mean, it's a really interesting thing. And I think maybe, if nothing else, what something like this does is remind us how many classic songs we kind of think of as dead songs are covers. And that's true in so many different areas of music, right?
right, I've always found Not Fade Away a touch creepy, but that's a story for another day.
All right. Well, you piqued my curiosity, so we'll have to get back to that at some point. So jambase.com, it says championship voting is open basically until Monday, April 3rd. So plenty of time to get in there and cast your votes for the champion. Taking it in a completely different direction, as I like to do, the New York Times very recently posted one of their interactive articles, and they do this a lot these days. Pretty cool. Basically, what scientists and musicians are doing these days is recording the sounds of unfreezing water to do a couple things: to document what it sounds like, and then use that to help predict the effects of climate change. And so you can kind of listen to it, and it's eerie, and it's just crazy. They have these microphones down into different ice caps, like huge GPS sensors, and they're monitoring stuff. So, Kevin, I just thought that was just really, really fascinating.
So the theory is as ice melts quicker, unfreezes quick. What are unfreezes quicker? I guess is the terminology they're using. The pitch changes or the sound of it changes. Is that the theory?
Yeah, yeah. So, and then it depends on, where that ice cap is exactly. So that sound of splintering glaciers, the runoff
Right.
as it cascades down. And if you pay attention to the rate of that, and then, like you said, maybe the pitch, something that they're really trying to, I guess, keep track of. And this is not new. I just hadn't heard of this before. I think since 2009, there have been efforts to try to do this.
So it's listen to your mother is basically what it goes back to.
Yes. And I can tell you, I went to Iceland about 20 years ago and spent a lot of time playing on glaciers there. And there is a sound when you are surrounded by that kind of ice, and it's hard to explain. So I'm actually really curious. Hopefully they'll make some of this public so we can all listen to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So there you go. There's your second story of the week. And then, the third one, I guess it's maybe coming back a little bit to our roots here. So, Kevin, let me ask you this: what would you say if 100 drummers were playing at the same time?
What would I say? I'd say I'd probably want to go in the other room. That would be a little. It would be too much over sensation, I think, for me.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. But for the 1 year anniversary of Taylor Hawkins' passing, which was March 25th, so just recently, um, 100 drummers. They were Belgian drummers, so this didn't happen here in the States. But to commemorate that, these 100 drummers came together for a special performance of My Hero with one of their local bands called Black Box Revelation. It was filmed at a venue in Antwerp, which I learned was the last venue in Belgium where Hawkins had played back in 2018. So truly like an infantry there. So just wanted to mention that. We'll have to post the video for this. It's pretty powerful, honestly, that they were able to even do that.
Were they all in sync? I
Pretty
mean, that's the
much.
thing. I'm thinking 100 people playing the exact same thing. That's I don't know.
It's tough, right? Because you have this pretty big area, and so even if they were the way that the sound's coming at you,
Yeah, the
maybe live,
echo.
I don't know if it would have sounded that way at all or not. So it's fascinating
Yeah,
to even try something like this. And so I just thought it was kind of cool.
that was fantastic, Amanda. Nice job there. Let's jump into this Rich Grossman from the Lizards tribute band. He was fantastic to talk to, and what I found most interesting was very comfortable with being a cover band. I've always felt like musicians in my head or like would want to do their own stuff, but we got into that later. But the first thing we talked about was choosing songs and how they choose what songs to play. So let's take a listen to that, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, so let me ask you. Fans love the songs fans love. I know a lot of people don't like stuff Phish do live now, a lot of the
Mm.
newer stuff. How do you guys go about choosing what songs that you want to play?
So good question. That's one of my roles in the band is just to call the songs on stage. So it's usually that responsibility falls on my shoulders. Truthfully, I when we're on a longer tour, we definitely try to keep it interesting for us. So we don't repeat a lot of songs, which lends itself to us playing a lot of different things, like varying from year to year too. So we probably have a list of close to 200 songs that we can draw from at any time, and
Wow.
There's definitely more songs from the quote unquote 1.0 era and 2.0 era that we play, but we do and have incorporated new songs, whether it be from their Halloween um, endeavors or just new original music. I'd say we definitely lean more towards the older stuff, but I would I would imagine you see at least one, maybe even two or more 3.0 songs
Okay.
in one of our shows.
Very nice.
Once
Very
in a while
nice.
it's not that at all. Sometimes it's an all 1.0 show sometimes, and there's no intention behind that. It's just that's kind of what happens.
Right.
And then sometimes we do make a decision to like play newer songs, like let's make this set maybe more of a 3.0 e set. And but a lot of the times we kind of just I just choose a song from what I feel in that moment and try to read the crowd and play off the energy of the people. And yeah.
I hear you. So when you're looking at a Phish song, are you trying to recreate it or are you reinterpreting it?
So it depends on what kind of song it is, for sure. If it's a song like Fluffhead, there's it's like 15 minutes of composed music, so there's no room for interpretation until like maybe the very end of the song where there's that big, glorious guitar solo or whatever. Um so in songs like that, it's obviously a replication. There's, that's just what it has to be. But when we get to jamming, it's the way I often describe it is that because of the nature of improvisational music, it lends itself to being unique to each individual. There's no way that we could improvise like our predecessors or whoever were our heroes or anyone, as much as we may try to even imitate them, like we're going to end up sounding like ourselves. And so that's not to say that I don't have, some stock Trey licks in the back of the brain, like ready to go. And of course I'm playing with a rig that emulates his sound. So in a way, most people that come to the show would feel like they're hearing something that's similar to his sound. But the way that we jam is completely different than the way that Phish jams. It's like miles and miles of difference, then that's just due to the nature of the individualism of each human on stage, right? Like that's just kind of how it works. And we try not to talk too much about jamming. I think for that maybe for that reason, because it's nice to just be kind of in the moment. So when we rehearse and stuff, a lot of the times the rehearsals are making sure the vocal harmonies are together, making sure all of the other parts are together, of the songs that lend themselves to being a bit more challenging. So when we get to jamming, it's like we're just trying to listen as much as we can, and in the beginning, we like early era of the band, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, we probably talked about it a little bit more, but now I think it's a bit more organic because we've been playing with each other for almost 10 years.
Right.
You start to like develop a relationship with the people that you play with, right?
All right. Kevin, this is such a great interview. And, I love Phish so much. It's always interesting to hear from people that are taking their own kind of path to digging on those songs. Before we get back into the interview, though, wanted to just remind everyone to like, follow, subscribe, make sure you're sharing. We're on social media at All That Jam Pod and allthatjampod.com. Also, wherever you listen to your podcast, please make sure to get on there, give us 5 stars, share a review. It would mean a whole lot to us. We appreciate it. And Kevin, I think we're going to get back into the interview here. You had talked about Trey's rig and kind of how they kind of do their best to make that kind of fit for them. So let's hear a little bit about that.
How much of the fun in it is trying to recreate Trey's sound? I know you've talked about all the gear that you guys have.
Yeah.
Do you check out Trey's rig, that guy, and say, hey, what's the newest
for
thing?
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a balance of what I like and what I can afford. So so the guitar that I use is it's a custom guitar, but it's not an official Languedoc guitar. It's made by a builder, luthier here in Toronto that I got a number of years ago. And the amp that I use is his old school amp, the 1.0 amp, which is more accessible financially and really just financially than what he's using now. Now he's using like this Trainwreck amp, which I believe is upwards of like $25,000, maybe even more, something like that. So like certain amplifiers, it's out of the question. There's like no way that I could really get those at this point in my life. But
Does a $25,000 amplifier really sound that much better than, say, a $5,000 amplifier?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I've never played through one. But Trey thinks so. So
Right.
who knows? That's one person's opinion.
Yeah.
That being said, I do. So I do emulate a lot of the sounds just from an amplification standpoint. I emulate more of a 1.0 and sometimes even 2.0 sound because I have like he uses the Mesa in 1.0 and then in 2.0 and even in 1.0 a little bit he starts to use the Fender Deluxe Reverb and then he carries on with that. So I have both of those amps when we tour.
Okay.
And I'll use them both. Usually I use the Mesa.
And you can just shut one off so you can have Pebbles and Marbles sound like it did in 2.0 or
Yeah, I
something.
could do that. Exactly. You have an amp selector like on the ground or something. You could set that up and switch between. I usually don't, to be honest.
Right.
I just use one for the night. But on the floor, like the pedals is where you can really like recreate more of the sounds that he's.
Do you have a Mutron?
So I have a variation of it. I have like one of their newer models. It's called the Microtron 4. So that's like it's pretty much the same concept, just in a smaller box. It's like this big as opposed to that big.
A huge sound.
But the main sound for Trey for so many years was just a Ross compressor and 2 tube screamers. The tube screamers are modded by this company called Analog Man, and then he has a wah, obviously. And then the other things that he's added over the years, like the whammy pedal and some tremolo stuff, and now he's onto some whole new shit, which I'm not getting every piece of gear, because the thing I found when we started the band is that I was trying to like at one point chase the sound that was the most current of whatever tour was happening, and then the next tour you'd see that sound just disappear. So now you're holding on to this piece of gear you spent however much money on it, and you've incorporated
You'll never
it
use
in
it
your
again.
show, and now you're not going to use it anymore. Or if you do, it's like obviously it's a personal creative choice. I could still use the sound, but yeah, like that's so I stopped trying to just here's the new rig, got to get the new pedal, got to get whatever he's got. It's like it's an endless game, So I just found what I liked, and if there are new things that come into play, or I get inspired by a new sound that he's got and I really do like it and want to find it, then I'll go out and search for it. But a lot of the things I have now are most things are pretty set, I would say. I'm not adding too much like new pedals or too many new pedals or sounds these days. It's been it's pretty steady for a couple of years.
Nice. Very nice.
Except for maybe the synth. He has this new synth pedal that I've started to use too. That's it, which is cool. I like that sound. I don't know. Some people are into it. Some people aren't into it. Jerry used to use the synth and people kind of ragged on him, I feel like.
Oh, the MIDI. When he did like the trumpet and built the last, that was fantastic. I don't know what people were talking about with that nonsense.
Yeah, some people didn't like that stuff.
The only MIDI issue I had with the Grateful Dead was poor Vince Welnick and Braylove controlling that little Casio keyboard and them not letting him have like an organ and a piano and everything.
Yeah, it was very weird. It's like it's an interesting choice to like make that sound literally like die with your last keyboard player,
Right.
Yeah, it's like I was an odd choice.
Did you happen to catch the Goose clip with Trey with him explaining Divided Sky?
Yeah, I did actually. That's cool, and that's news to me. Like I love seeing that stuff. It's amazing.
You're like, I got it now. I can do.
Yeah, well, it's funny because he's talking about specifically the Mesa amp, and there's 3 channels, and I had no idea that he was using all 3 channels all of the time. I assumed that it was one. Literally, I just assumed it was one the whole time, and yeah, now it's like I need to get the foot switch for the amp and start messing around and figuring it out.
See how it changes.
At least that's something that's more accessible. I already have the amp, and now all I need to do is just use the foot switch.
Right. Very nice. Crazy because it's true that Trey probably has a bunch of stuff that is out of most people's price range as little toys for his guitar there. But I mean, if you listen to Rich, he definitely nails it. He nails what he does, and he's figured it out even to the eras. We can sound 90s or we can sound more 3.0, 4.0.
Fascinating. And That's really where the tribute part comes in. Beyond a cover band, I think, is what you're just talking about.
Yep, the attention to detail there. So before we get into our last little bit about originals and why they don't do them, this week, make sure you check us out. On Tuesday, we have Kevin from Royal Potato talking about Upstate and their new release coming out. Wednesday, we have Chris Yunker talking about the future and where he sees himself going with his music. Thursday, Scott McMicken from Dr. Dog on his new project, The Ever Expanding. Friday, we got Nick McDaniels back on from Big Something about some studio recordings. And then on Saturday, our preview of the interview for 410 is going to be with Upstate and about their new LP, You Only Get a Few, which comes out on the 31st. And then next week, we have Scott Sherrard from Little Feat for our big interview. And Little Feat has some shows coming up, a tour, and we'll get into him about that. And let's get into this originals thing, and we'll talk to you on the other side. You have a cover band. Do you ever think I want to throw an original in there?
So we've talked about that a bunch because it's something that we get asked often, and we don't write together, and nor do we share a lot of original ideas and songs together, because I think we've just kind of had this approach to building this tribute band and trying to make it, something that
keeping it in a bubble.
Yeah, keeping it, and then maybe over time, if we get to a certain point where, we have a much larger fan base and we're more of a household name, then we can start to do something like that. Like I look at bands, even like not to necessarily compare us to other bands, but I look at like J-Rad, and J-Rad isn't an original band, but they have like 2 or 3 original songs that they've played at live shows, and they really didn't do that until they were much more established. So I think that it would probably fall in that line.
Right. Also, they throw in songs like Atlantic City that the Dead didn't do, which I love. Other covers. Is that a thought ever?
Hey, yeah, that's something that we do too, actually. So whenever we do, we've done a couple of Halloween shows, and instead of covering like a Phish album from start to finish, we've done 2 specifically that are just albums that we've enjoyed and thought that maybe would be in the style of something that Phish might do if they were to cover records. So one year we did Traffic, Low Spark of the High Heeled Boys. So we did that whole record. And this past Halloween in Rochester, we did Let It Be, but we did Let It Be Naked. So it was like a different order.
That was such a great release when they put what was that in like 2005 or 4 or something that came out?
I prefer that so much more to the original, like especially having really dived into the music itself, having to learn it all and all the parts, and it's like it's nice to have it without all those like sappy strings. And
when you did the Traffic, did you have a flautist, a guest come out and play?
We did not have that. So there's just one tune I think that has
Tragic Magic, right?
Or Hidden Treasure. I think
Treasure, right?
Yeah, the first track on that record. So no, we didn't have a flute, but Joel, our keyboard player, he has a synth, so we used the synth flute for that specific part. We recreated as much as we could, but that's like the first show. I think the first show where I ever even played acoustic guitar with the band, because the gig is always on electric, just like most Phish shows is mainly on electric. But it was cool. So we ended up we did a 3-set show, and that record itself is probably like 35 minutes, 40 minutes. And we ended up jamming it for like an hour and a half.
Nice.
It was long.
Low Spark is one of those songs that just leaves itself open. I mean, it has all let's sing a verse and vamp for,
Totally. Everybody gets a turn, I remember I've seen Phil do that, like Phil and Friends do that, and with Warren and Schofield and a bunch of guys, and they just opened it up. It was like 25 minutes long.
Legend is that Brent soundchecked that with the Grateful Dead at one time back in 88 or 89, but it never appeared. I was like, out of space. They could have just finished the show with that for 20 minutes, whatever.
Well, it's not like they're opposed to playing Traffic songs, right? Like the Dear Mr. Fantasy or whatever.
Right. Fantasy is fantastic.
So Kevin, I really respect where they're coming from with their take on originals. And actually, I have a really good buddy who's been leading a Bob Marley tribute band for the last dozen years or so. he's also in his own bands that write their original stuff. But, I guess if you're going to be dedicated, especially with a band like Phish, you got to really focus in. So it makes sense.
Right. Was this the band that you went to see a few weeks ago?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And you know what? The love for a band that just digs in and really lives whatever the music is that they're playing, I think that is a special thing.
It is, definitely. So I think that that's all we got this week since both of us were out all weekend. We're actually, Amanda's in the airport and it's late Monday when we usually have this done Sunday night. So make sure, tune in, subscribe, like, give us a review on Apple, please. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll talk to you soon, Amanda.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.